Okay, let's just jump right in. Imagine a time, it's the early 1970s, and hijacking a plane? Yeah, that was just something that happened, almost every week. And today, we're going to talk about maybe the single most unbelievable story from that whole crazy era. It's about a woman who hijacks a jet and then just vanishes.
So to really get how wild this is, you have to understand just how chaotic things were back then. I mean, between 1968 and 1972, get this, there were over 130 commercial hijackings in the US alone. Nope, that's not a typo. We're talking about a full-blown epidemic. Just let that sink in for a second. More than once a week, some plane somewhere was being hijacked. You can imagine the news reports, right? It just fueled this nationwide paranoia. And for people who felt like they were on the fringes of society, a multi-million-dollar jet, well, that became the ultimate symbol of power. It was a way to grab the steering wheel in a world that felt like it had left them behind. The absolute peak of all this madness was 1972. 40 skyjackings in a single year, and each one seemed to be crazier than the last. And that brings us to the morning of June 2nd, when Western Airlines Flight 701 was about to become the most infamous one of all.
So, how did it all start? With a really simple but totally terrifying gesture. A man, he's in a military uniform, calmly hands a flight attendant 2 little notes. The first one gets right to the point with this line, and it goes on to say there are 4 hijackers and, oh yeah, 2 bombs on the plane.
In the second note, it was this incredibly detailed, hand-drawn diagram of a bomb, supposedly tucked inside a briefcase. The captain, who was a hardened ex-Marine, he takes one look at this thing, the detail, the components listed, and his blood just runs cold. He's thinking, okay, this is no amateur hour. This looks like the real deal.
And then, scrawled at the bottom of this terrifying diagram are just 2 simple, chilling words. And with that, one of the most unbelievable hijackings in history had officially begun.
Okay, so right now you're probably thinking, wait, how on earth was any of this even possible? How could someone just waltz onto a plane with what everyone thought was a bomb? Well, the answer, it lies in a world of air travel that is almost unrecognizable to us today.
Yeah, just forget everything you know about flying today. Forget the TSA, the super long lines, the body scanners. Back then, flying was, well, it was kind of a dream. You could literally stroll from the curb right up to the gate, no ticket needed, no ID check, nothing. But that beautiful, idyllic picture, it was hiding a massive, terrifying vulnerability.
And get this, the airline's official policy, the thing written in the pilot's manuals, was to just comply. Give the hijackers whatever they wanted. It was just a cold, hard business decision. See, it was cheaper to pay a small fee, like 20 grand, to get a plane back from Cuba than it was to install security in every single airport. It seemed like a brilliant plan, right up until the hijackers started demanding a lot more than just a ride to a tropical vacation.
Which brings us right back to Flight 701, into the 2 people who were about to change the face of air travel forever. Their names were Willie Roger Holder and Katherine Marie Kirkow, and their story, believe it or not, begins with a twist of fate that's just almost too incredible to be true.
So, let's talk about Roger Holder. This was a man forged in the fires of trauma. Seriously, as a kid, his family was literally run out of their home by racists. As a young man, he enlists and gets sent to Vietnam, where he watches his entire crew die in a landmine explosion that he survives. He came home a ghost, you know? A man who felt like he had absolutely nothing left to lose.
And then one day, a knock on a door just changes everything. It's 1972, and Holder finds himself face-to-face with this woman, Kathy Kirkow, and he realizes he knows her. He hadn't seen her since they were just kids back in that same town that had cast him out. He had this vague memory of her as the girl who used to chase salamanders, just this fleeting memory of a life that felt like it was stolen from him.
So this incredible reunion sets the stage for what would become the longest-distance skyjacking in American history. Holder, obsessed with astrology, began plotting his grand gesture. He called it Operation Sisyphus, after the Greek myth of a man condemned to forever push a boulder uphill, a symbol of his own endless, futile struggle against the system. And when he asked Kirkow to join him, her response was a chilling mix of innocence and audacity. So, what does one wear to a hijacking?
Okay, so their plan was, well, it was a mess from the start. Plan A completely fails when a check for their getaway tickets bounces by just under $3. So, on to Plan B. Kirkow exchanges an old family ticket for 2 one-way seats to Seattle. They end up on a flight they were never even supposed to be on. Once aboard, Holder kicks things off, pretending Kirkow's a total stranger. He makes his demands, $500,000 cash, and he wants the activist Angela Davis delivered to the plane. But there was a problem. His original destination was North Vietnam, and he quickly realizes the plane just can't make it that far. He has to improvise a new final stop right there on the spot.
So the pilot asks him, the question just hanging in the air, where to? And Holder, who's apparently lost in his astrological charts, feels this answer just rise up from somewhere deep inside him. He whispers one word, Algiers. And with that, the longest skyjacking in American history was truly underway.
Fast forward 25 hours. They finally touch down in Algiers and come face to face with the legendary Black Panther leader, Eldridge Cleaver. He demands, "Show me the money." But when the briefcase is opened, the big reveal happens. Inside, an alarm clock, an astrology book, and some razors. There was never a bomb. The entire thing was a monumental, unbelievably audacious bluff.
So they'd pulled off the impossible, but their revolutionary dream, it was about to turn into a complete nightmare. Turns out, life in exile was a far cry from the paradise they had imagined. It was really just a slow descent into disillusionment and paranoia.
First, the Algerian government just takes all the ransom money. Then, Holder gets totally disillusioned with Eldridge Cleaver, even calling him a phony. So the couple flees to Paris using false passports. And this is where things really fall apart. Holder's PTSD gets worse and worse, while Kirkow, she actually thrives in French society. And then, in 1978, she leaves Holder an Omega watch and vanishes, just gone forever.
Roger Holder's story, well, it doesn't end with a bang. It's more of a whimper. In 1986, he's deported from France back to the US. He serves time for air piracy and gets out in '89. Then, just a couple years later, he gets arrested again in a foiled plot to hijack another jet. He was just a man trapped in another era. He kind of faded into obscurity before he died in 2012 from a brain aneurysm.
So while Holder's story might be over, the legacy of Flight 701, that lives on. Their unbelievable bluff was really the final nail in the coffin for this golden age of hijacking. It was a single act that would end up changing the way we all fly forever.
And the fallout was so swift and decisive. First, there's a huge international pilot strike to protest the complete lack of security. Then, in January of 1973, the U.S. government finally mandates physical screening of all passengers and all carry-on bags. And a month after that, the U.S. and Cuba sign an extradition treaty, which basically closes the main escape route for hijackers. The party was officially over.
And the results were, they were staggering. Look at this. We go from nearly 30 hijackings in 1972 down to just 1 in 1973. That's it. The epidemic just stops cold. The golden age of hijacking was dead.
So Holder's story has an ending. We know what happened to him. But Katherine Kirkow's story, that's a ghost story. To this very day, she remains on the FBI's most wanted list. Her face just stares back from this aging wanted poster, a haunting reminder of a crime that literally changed the world. And her whereabouts? A complete and total mystery. And so, we're left with this one big question. After a hijacking that shook the world, after a life on the run, and after a disappearance that just defies all explanation, where in the world is the salamander catcher from Coos Bay?